super excited today because I have on the show Anders Jones, who is the CEO and co-founder of Facet, and we're going to talk all about how Facet helps folks. But first, hi Anders, thank you for doing this. I know your time is valuable.
Yeah, no, good. Thanks for having me, Joe. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so let's start with before we get into some of the funding piece, like what the heck you guys do. I know it's related to 401ks. I know you're kind of disrupting that world. I know you have advisors and tech,
hmm
but how do you help? What do you do?
Yeah, so it's way more than 401ks. So we do financial planning and financial advice. So think like anything in your life that money touches, which we found is most things. We help people make good decisions about how to allocate their resources, whether it's time or money, and achieve their life goals. Said in sort of like, VC pitch speak, we're direct to consumer fintech, and we do financial planning focused on the mass affluent market. So kind of sub $1 million of overall net worth on a subscription basis. So I think this is a really important point. We don't charge an asset-based fee or any kind of commission on a product. You pay an annual subscription. It's very transparent what you pay for, what you get, and then the onus is on us to keep providing value every single year so that you keep re-upping. So in terms of like the actual experience, so if you Joe signed up for Facet, we'd match you with one of our advisors.
Yep.
These are all folks who are they're employees of Facet, so it's not like hey, meet Bob, and like maybe Bob's good, maybe Bob isn't good. Like these are all vetted employees of Facet. We would work with you through a process to understand your goals and your financial situation. And then, we sort of have a combination of like, okay, what are the things we can do to help you buy a house or get married or have your first kid, or take care of your aging parents, whatever it might be. And then also we sort of put our fiduciary lens on it, which is like, there's probably some stuff you aren't thinking about. Like, do you have an estate plan, or is your insurance appropriate for, your sort of level of wealth and risk? And so we kind of put all those things together over the course of a period of time. And, the goal is to get you in a place where you feel like you have sort of complete control over your financial life, and you have a very clear roadmap of here are the things that I want to do with my life, and here are the actions that I can take to accomplish those. So that's us in a nutshell.
Yeah, and that helps a lot because I was stuck a little bit on the 401k part, but the
Yeah,
facet part makes more sense, right? Like every facet of your life, I think, is part of what
exactly.
we talk about, right? So
That's
that
why we
all
you picked up on why we named the company that way. Yeah,
it all's coming together now. And so you
yeah,
guys are on a roll. I you recently, within the last month or so, got I think 35 million in funding, right?
yep.
And that brings you to 210 million. Is that right?
Yeah, 200 ish. Yeah.
And so what's the plan? Like, where do you go from here? I think you have something like 14,000 households. Is that right?
Yep, that's right. So, taking a big step back, when we started the company, we really saw three major issues with financial advice as it exists today. It's first of all, it's a huge industry, right? I mean, we're talking about trillions of dollars that advisors manage, tens of millions of consumers just in the U.S. who work with a financial advisor, but it's largely the high net worth that covers. We sort of saw three big problems with financial advice as it exists today. So number one is it's very expensive. Chances are you're paying some percentage of assets to your advisor, and when you actually do the math, it's in the tens of thousands of dollars a year.
Wow.
Um, if you have less than $1 million, chances are your money is better spent figuring out a DIY solution, like going to the Vanguard website and piecing it together yourself. Number two is it's full of conflicts of interest. The way that advisors charge for advice does not align the interests of the customer with their interests, and we could debate sort of that. It's actually a pretty it's a little bit of like the third rail of financial advice, talking about how to charge for advice. But I would argue that the most transparent and the most aligned way to do it is to charge a very transparent flat fee that is very clear. This is what you're paying for. This is what you're getting. And then lastly is, frankly, it's most of it is not very good. Like most advisors will talk to you about saving for retirement, and managing your money, and the two go hand in hand, right? The more you save, the more they can manage,
Yeah.
and that's kind of it. And if you think about what really good financial planning can do to help you live a better life today, there's so many things, so many topics that we can touch on that don't, that like a traditional advisor won't really work with you on.
Yeah.
So that whole preamble to answer your question is, we see an opportunity to build like the next Fidelity, the next Schwab. There are tens of millions of consumers out there who don't have access to good financial advice, or are working with an advisor that's probably charging them too much and not doing a great job.
Yeah.
And so we want to build the next great financial services company that helps all of those people, and that really kind of, takes what financial advice is today and iterates on it and builds the next version of it. So when you think about the capital that we've raised and who we've raised it from, that's really sort of like in support of this much bigger vision of, building a, tens of billions or hundreds of billions of dollar market cap company, working with millions of Americans, and really kind of changing how financial advice is delivered.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I that's a big vision that you got. And so as you started, right, was it 2016-ish?
Yep. Yeah.
And first, for folks that are maybe looking to get funding or at the early days, like what did it look like back then for you? And like what can you tell, give any insight about what that journey has been from those early days until where you are now?
Yeah. So we had a bit of a unique funding path. So we did we raised a seed round. I think it was just shy of $4 million, led by you know, a, they probably wouldn't want me to call them traditional, but traditional seed company called, or seed firm called Slow Ventures. But a firm that sort of plays in that seed and small Series A space. And I mean that part was pretty typical. We raised on a safe note. It was, I forget the exact valuation, but it was sort of in line with what you'd expect. And then we sort of had a couple years of runway, and we were sort of planning on doing a normal Series A. This was 2017, 2018. A $10 million Series A was kind of the norm. And then we got introduced to Warburg Pincus, which is a large growth equity firm. Their last fund, I think, was $15.5 billion. They're typically writing 300 to $500 million checks into much later stage companies, and in a lot of cases, like buying companies outright. So we were definitely not their sort of standard investment.
Yeah.
And I think to this day we might be the smallest check they've ever written as an initial investment out of their main fund. But they are very thesis driven investors, and so they had this, and they have a ton of experience in financial services. And they basically came forward and said, "Look, we believe that the future of financial planning for the mass affluent is subscription based. Like we have this checklist of 10 items that is sort of our thesis, and you guys hit 10 out of 10." And they're like, that never happens. And so they basically preempted our Series A process, and it's been a great partnership ever since. And so they've been involved in the company for 6 years. They led our Series A, they led our Series B, and then they participated in the last two rounds. So it's definitely not a unique, or excuse me, it's not a normal. It's a fairly unique funding story.
Yeah.
That and look, we could talk about it. There are pros and cons to taking on as much capital as we did. Our Series A in 2018 was $33 million, which back then was like a crazy amount of money, especially for a software slash services business, not a hard tech or like biotech company.
Yeah.
And so there's pros and cons to raising that much money early on. But I'd say given where we are today, I think it was the right choice.
Wow. So how big do you think it gets? Like in how soon? Where do you want to be? Whatever you want to answer that. You don't have to give me all the details, but give me your vision a little bit more.
I mean, there's a lot of ways to define success. as you mentioned, we have about 15,000 households that we work with now. And you can kind of do the average household pays us just over $3,000. So you can kind of do the math on where we are from a revenue standpoint. Um, but like I said before, like I see a major standalone, financial services company here. And I think that, there hasn't been a sort of direct to consumer financial planning company or financial advice company that has really reached the level of of like kind of major player since Fidelity came along or since Schwab came along. And that's, I mean, we're talking decades. So the time is right for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and with that, I will say, just doing a little bit of research and poking around your website, I was thinking, well, I really need to be looking at becoming a member. So
Please do. Yeah.
I love what you're doing. I know you've got a really busy day, so I thank you for the time. Anything else you want to add in at the end here? Actually, you know what? I'll ask you to do one more time is
Sure.
just pitch for me. Let's say, my brother, who's your perfect kind of type of client. If you in 30, 45 seconds, whatever, what would you say to him in terms of like why he should do this?
Well, look, our goal is to help everyone enrich their life beyond expectation. And, what I mean by that is that, everyone has much more potential to live a better life if their financial life is in a good spot. And so, without knowing anything about your brother and his situation, we would basically really understand what his goals are. We look at what are the things that he's not thinking about, and then really try and create a plan or set of scenarios that he can choose from that puts him on the path to achieve those goals in like a healthy manner as fast as possible. So again, without knowing anything about a situation, that's my high level pitch.
Okay, cool.
But every single person in this company is keyed up on the mission and is keyed and like really believes in what we're doing and that we are changing lives every single day.
Yeah. And I don't think I saw you use the language of financial coach, but that's a little bit what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, I mean, there's more. There's a lot of different ways to look at it. We sometimes refer to our advisors as therapists with calculators because there's so much emotion that goes into how people think about money, and like the way that you think about money and the way I think about money can be totally different. So
I
actually, one of the things that
promise
we
you that's
do.
true. Just from what I've seen in your background, I promise you that's true.
Well, yeah, who knows? But one of the things that we do is we help people actually. We put them through a quiz. That's like, what's your money mindset? What is your psychology around money? Because that really dictates how you spend it and how you save it and how you invest it. And that's an important thing to know. Like we're big believers that it's not a one size fits all when it comes to what success looks like in your financial life.
Awesome. All right, good. We'll
Yeah.
end it there because again, I know you're busy, but it's facet.com, right? Where folks can
Yep.
go to learn more. Great
Yeah.
domain too, by the way. I'm a big
Thank you.
domain nerd, so I love it. All right. Thanks, Anders. Have a great afternoon.
Okay. Thanks, Joe.
Okay, bye now.